All the information in this video is going to be based off of the PTR and streams during the PTR, which is the public test realm, which was open to anyone and everyone. Let me start this video off with a list of things I will go over. This way you can skip around the video to what you want to listen to or realize right away that this video wasn't for you. Timestamps will be in the description below. In no specific order, I will be going over key changes, insurance and armor changes, what quest line to rush early game, what end game gun meta will most likely look like, how to maintain Kmarks, the Howler, and a recap and my thoughts on Season 3. Let's start by going over some of the key card changes. Theris is going to be locked for 50 days, which means there will be no forge here at all for 50 days. Everyone will be on the same level playing field, and the Kmark exploit from Season 2 start won't happen again. Keys are all themed now. This means if you have a garage key, for example, you could go there and get explosives or smart mesh, whatever the key room theme may be. This will make it easier for crafting and finding key items for quests. That being said, you could also see in the loot rooms before opening them to see if it's even worth using your key card at the current time for weapons and armor spawns as well. Insurance is now voided after each raid, unless it's Orm insured, of course. This means live or die, insurance is gone after that raid. Insurance is never going to be worth it unless you Orm insure things. You have to go in with the intention of dying. It is too much of a Kmark sink to ensure good gear, buy ammo, and repair your gear after the raid. Armor was also changed this season with it having a lower cap, which also made it so you had to repair armor after every single raid. So with all that information, let's get into how to get a head start and maintain that head start. First things first, the most important thing to do in order to get ahead of the pack early on is getting green stims unlocked as soon as possible. Since forged armor is locked for 50 days, getting those green stims early is a game changer. Doing all quest lines is obviously very important for Kmarks and progression as well. But rushing green stims will be the most important thing to get that jump start in the first couple days. The Korolev questline is one of the easier ones because all you have to do is collect items if you're looking for quick Kmarks. Speaking of Korolev, I think that the hammer and the core are by far the best guns that were on the PTR. That being said, the brute was bugged on the PTR and not at the correct damage value. The main reason that the hammer was one of the best weapons was because you don't need nearly as much ammo as the other guns, and it can 2-tap any armor. The blue version of the hammer was bad, but if you're against lower tier armor, especially in the early game aspect, it still shreds them, and it's very good against PvE. All that being said, I would sell most things to Korolev to level them up as fast as possible for Season 3 to get early hammers and early cores. Let's talk a little about the gun meta quick while we're on the topic of guns. Most people on the PTR could get purple and exotic guns within the first day or two because of key rooms and puzzle rooms on Crescent Falls. That being said, with ammo changes, most guns are too expensive to run after you get them. For example, the Brute in Season 2, which is the most popular gun, you would now have to spend around 30,000 per raid just for the ammo alone. I know in my last video I said in order to get better gear, you have to run better gear. Well, that might not be an option in Season 3. That being said, some of those Mark 1 and Mark 2 guns found in raid are lower tier and use lower tier ammo, so it is more affordable. It is still always worth it to go search for those weapons. That being said, because of the ammo changes, obviously the hammer being an exotic weapon is still going to be expensive, but not nearly as expensive as a brute or other exotic weapons, which makes the hammer, in my opinion, the most effective gun. The biggest problem with this ammo change and this Kmark sync change, I think, is going to be never really seeing a reason to ever buy an Arbiter or Basilisk. They are way too overpriced and not worth the money. Especially with the new insurance system where you would have to insure it every single raid, which, again, insurance just isn't worth it unless you're Orm insuring everything. With ammo being extremely expensive and not as accessible, I think legendary guns became even more useless than they currently are. There was a reason no one ran them before this event, sadly, because They just really weren't that good, but they were super fun. So you'd run them for a raid or two, and then you would die to a brute or basilisk, and then you'd run a brute or basilisk. I think this was a change to prevent the top 1% from using these guns 24/7, or basically having millions upon millions of Kmarks and never having to worry about anything. That being said, I think this change also really screws over the general population, or the players that are slightly below average. Obviously, the examples I just used are still more endgame content, but again, people were getting to endgame content within the first 3 days of the public test server, so these are very, very valid concerns. I don't think that the lower tier guns or meta has been affected at all by these changes, since they really haven't been touched since day 2 of season 2. Last thing on the meta I will say is that grenades are going to be insanely overpowered. Crafting them will be super, super helpful as they shred armor and force people to sink more money into repairing armor. As I stated before, insurance is just not worth it anymore. The payout after insuring 2 to 3 raids doesn't even cover those 2 to 3 raids you just paid for. So unless you know you will die or are using something insane like a Karma, Comrade, or Zeus Beam, it's not worth it at all. You will most likely Orem insure those guns anyways. If you thought season 1 or season 2 was heavy with rats, wait for season 3 where you won't be insuring anything. Staying alive and repairing armor is going to be the most important thing. It's going to be the new insurance. Doing quests and side missions is going to be the only way to maintain and keep your Kmark value high before you get to endgame content like drills, oil, and dungeons. But once you unlock those things, I would highly recommend rushing dungeons, as the reward at the very end has a high chance of giving you a drill, an oil, or another dungeon. This would also require you to run decent guns and armor, and again, a huge sink into ammo, which is why I think you should stock up on hammers early on so you can run dungeons super easily. Sadly, for all you jungle lovers, it was not a good way to gain or maintain money during the PTR. You would on average gain around 10 to 20k profit per raid, which is kind of insane coming from the classic 60,000 to 100,000 plus jungle runs. Let's talk about one of the newest things here, which is the Howler. Just don't fight it. That's my biggest advice I can give you. Unless it's for a job or quest, the investment alone for ammo is just not worth it. Alongside the armor repairs you're going to have to do and the attention you're going to pull during the raid. Just run from the Howler when you see it. It's not worth it. You'll bring too much attention and you will most likely get third-partied while fighting it as well. So unless you want to fight the entire server and the Howler at the same time, I would suggest waiting until very end game content where you will most likely have to kill it. Let's do a small recap and thoughts on season 3. Number 1, rush green stims. Number 2, get to Crescent as fast as possible so you can loot puzzle rooms and key rooms. Number 3, ammo changed the meta and how to gain Kmarks. Number 4, dungeons are going to be very helpful for Kmarks. Number 5, armor is a money sink and insurance is a scam. Number 6, utility like grenades are OP, so craft them as much as you can, really. Number 7, legendary guns became even more useless. Number 8, Theris is locked for 50 days. Number 9, Howler is underwhelming and very annoying. So, my overall thoughts on season 3 is that there is still going to be, sadly, a big content drought. I do like how they tried to address the Kmark inflation issue in the top 1% player base, but this just sadly screws over the general population and only slows down the top 1%. The Howler is cool and has really nice animations, but is more often annoying and unwanted. I was hoping the Howler would be every couple raids, but on the PTR, it was literally in every single game. Maybe this was because they wanted to test out the Howler and make sure it was working as intended, but hopefully it doesn't pop up that often. The gun meta will always shift based on balance and economy, and I actually really like that it feels like the meta will shift for Season 3. I have been extremely bored for the past 4 months of only core during core meta and Bassi during Bassi meta. I think people being able to get to endgame content during the PTR time period was very concerning, especially since it was under a week and there's no wipe ever to come back to the game. I was really hoping to not see anything above blue for at least 30 days. And now that we know Theris is locked, I really hope that we don't see good armor early on. That's all I got for you guys. Feel free to drop any questions in the comment section down below. I will be live at the start of Season 3. My Twitch will be linked in the description below. Thanks for watching.